DC Comics has made a lot of animated movies, and I mean a lot, but in the 2010s they decided to try and get a piece of that shared universe pie with a series of interconnected films that would come to be known as the DC Animated Movie Universe, or the DCAMU. Heavily based on DC's New 52 reboot of all its comics to synergize with the books, the DCAMU immediately introduced its Justice League and then spun out into all kinds of branching stories featuring a constant art style, one uniform cast of voice actors, and developing continuity as the League encountered new threats and expanded its ranks. I didn't care too much for the series myself. There are a few standout superb entries like Flashpoint, Death of Superman, and Justice League vs. the Teen Titans, and the rest are entertaining, just nothing special to me. But for a new generation of fans, the DCAMU was their DC universe, the same way my generation's DC was the Batman Superman Adventures and the Paul Dini Justice League cartoon. As the New 52 Comics line began to fall apart, the DCAMU branched out into more iconic stories like Hush, The Judas Contract, and again, a far superior Death and Return of Superman than Zack Snyder managed, but regardless, at the turn of the decade it was decided that it was time to retire the connected universe, and so the 2020 film Justice League Dark Apokolips War was made the final entry in this long-running and beloved series. And how did Warner Brothers Animation decide to put a cap on their connected universe? Well, they took all those running plot threads, all the developing, growing character arcs, and beloved heroes that fans had been following for years, threw them all together, and... Warner Brothers Animation was sick to death of having to make connected DC films, and watching Apokolips War, it feels readily apparent that they just wanted an excuse to end the series as quickly and bluntly as possible, culminating in a notorious ending that can only be described as a giant middle finger to anybody who ever cared about this series. This seriously ought to rank alongside Lost as one of the worst endings ever made. By the way, the title Justice League Dark refers to a team of magic-themed heroes who had all of one appearance prior to this in the series. So of course they're the focus of the big final crossover. Only not, because Constantine's really the only member accounted for. The film opens with that quote about knowing what you can't change that has absolutely nothing to do with the themes of this movie. It took me a while to realize this is a callback to the Flashpoint movie that started the series, which in turn is foreshadowing. The film really opens with magic heroes John Constantine and Zatanna waking up in bed together on the Justice League Watchtower. If you're not familiar with them, Constantine is a hard-drinking loner who fights and makes pacts with tons of demons over his own damned soul, and Zatanna will be dead soon. Superman has called the entire League together to respond to a crisis. By this point in the series, the alien god Darkseid has attempted to invade Earth twice, and only barely been stopped each time. Now they think another invasion is imminent because Darkseid teleported his planet into plain view, deployed all his strongest forces to dick around nowhere, and left saying, "This totally isn't a trap, you guys!" Superman's gotten fed up and thinks it's time to invade Darkseid's homeworld Apokolips to neutralize the threat once and for all. And what is Superman's plan for doing so?
We have to attack. With our combined force, we can cut through them. Then I'll do what needs to be done.
Just show up on Darkseid's front door and hope they can take him. Really? Really. No advanced scouting parties to gather reconnaissance, no backup of any kind, no escape plan in the highly likely scenario that the invasion goes tits up, no actual plan for how to beat Darkseid, one of the most powerful villains in all of DC, just bum rush God, going in blind, and hope for the best. The League can barely handle a small portion of Darkseid's army at a time, and you want to fight him head-on in his home turf with zero supplies or intel, basically just hoping you happen to catch him while he's on the toilet and that nobody sees you coming even when you aren't attempting stealth?
Next time I let Superman take charge, just hit me real hard.
Supes could always just try dragging Darkseid to jail. It worked on the Nintendo 64. This is what I mean by it felt like the writers wanted any excuse to end the movies. Superman shakes the earth with his stupidity and single-handedly dooms the whole planet to get the excuse plot moving. Superman especially shouldn't be this dumb because he's died to a monster from Apokolips in this timeline. He should not be this cocky going to fight the guy who made Doomsday and the cyborg Superman. And yeah, we see that Darkseid has hacked into Cyborg to spy on the League the whole time, but this plan still would have backfired within seconds, even without a mole in their ranks. Also, I really hope we're not supposed to read into the fact that the team's only prominent black guy is a traitor, which you can't help just because of how he was created. Holy yikes, Batman! God, I was so busy ranting about Superman that I forgot about the other pillars of stupid in this opening scene.
This place is jam-packed with those parademons.
We know these are their weak spots.
Good plan, Batman! Go for 3 tiny, vaguely weak points on the parademons while they're swarming you 10 to 20 at a time!
But you can't kick this hornet's nest like everyone on Earth is bulletproof.
I won't ask you to give anything more than I do.
You gotta love how Superman is so disconnected from reality that he completely missed John's point that nobody else he's putting at risk to fight God is invulnerable like he is.
I know some of you don't believe the visions I had about the Flashpoint. A truly global war means death and destruction on a scale you cannot imagine.
Why, thank you, Barry, for pointing out that a global war would kill lots of people. Let me know how your rebranding goes, changing your name from The Flash to Captain Obvious. And yeah, Flash just out of nowhere tells everybody about Flashpoint for no reason, because clumsy-ass foreshadowing. Anyway, the Justice League opens a portal to Apokolips while the Teen Titans stay behind on Earth to cover their absence. Now, if it were me, I'd try firing nukes through the portal to see if we can just blow Apokolips the hell up first. Yeah, it would leave the place radioactive, but Robin's got that shit on lock! But, shock of all shocks, things immediately go so wrong that we cut to a dystopian blown-up Earth 2 years later. Oh, don't worry, we'll find out what happened. Just give it time. Yeah, just render the parademons as floating static sprites. Who needs working wings to fly anyway? We catch up in a London that's been blown to shit as Constantine is now boozing it up in a pub with his friend Etrigan. Etrigan is a long story. He's an immortal warrior demon from medieval times, and he's bummed out because his human host died in this continuity.
Glens are full of whiskey. I mean, lots of whiskey.
We need him.
They're interrupted by Superman and Raven from the Teen Titans, and a fight with some parademons breaks out. Superman's powers aren't working, and Raven's magic is on the fritz, so Constantine has to take them out himself.
And I'm sober again. Magic can be such a bitch.
The first of many instances of magic doing whatever the hell it needs to. Superman explains what happened when the League invaded Apokolips.
Darkseid knew every part of our plan.
What plan? He saw through our strategy of slowly marching up to his front door for a fist fight. But how? Oh, and one thing that I forgot to mention about this movie. It's rated R. Zack Snyder's a bitch! Given that Darkseid created Doomsday in this continuity, he had engineered a new strain of parademons that are spliced with Superman's DNA for an army of virtually unkillable supermonsters, which Superman really should have seen coming given he did the exact same thing in Reign of the Superman! And these paradooms quite literally ripped the Justice League to pieces. Those who didn't die right away were captured and tortured until their minds crumbled to dust, knowing that there was no hope of rescue. And Superman was given a tattoo of liquid kryptonite to take away his powers and sent back to Earth to demoralize mankind. I'll give them credit. The animated movie universe used evil Superman as a plot point something like 5 times, but they still get that Superman is a symbol. Just wow. Bloodily butchering and maiming pop culture icons beloved by children the world over on screen in the name of shock value. You're so dark and edgy, DC, not at all pointlessly mean-spirited or trying way too hard. I'm not saying that nobody's allowed to make a violent superhero movie where major characters die graphically, but the way that this shit ends is gonna make everything so much worse. Constantine escaped the massacre by portaling himself back to Earth, for which Raven yells at John for being a gutless coward. You'd think she'd be mad that he didn't try to save more heroes on his way out, but instead she's all like, "You should have stayed and gotten pointlessly killed by indestructible monsters in a futile gesture of masculinity." tool, because Constantine being smart is actually a plot point for later. Anyway, Superman and Raven want John to use a spell to locate Damian Wayne, the son of Batman. And speaking of tall, dark, and tortured to insanity, we cut to Apokolips, where Batman is currently serving as Darkseid's personal assistant. He's filling in for Metron, who I don't think was ever introduced in this series, so this kinda makes no sense unless you researched it elsewhere. Now, even though we were shown and told that the League went to Apokolips and immediately got slaughtered, they apparently somehow managed to blow up Apokolips's reactor core off-screen. Nothing in the earlier dialogue or any flashbacks implies that they did any damage whatsoever, but simultaneously they crippled Darkseid's forces.
The damage done to the Apokolips reactor during the attack 2 years ago.
Your attack.
This is really confusing! Whatever, point is, they've sent 3 Reaper machines to Earth to suck out the Earth's core, and Lex Luthor is the middle management overseeing Earth's harvest. Also, listen to Darkseid's voice here.
With that ordinance, the Guardians of Oa will be forced to bow before me. After all, a conqueror must conquer.
That is the voice of a horrifically wasted Tony Todd.
They will say that I have shed innocent blood. And you don't even want to fuck with that, Mac Daddy. We will tell everyone.
The man can bring shit to men's pants with his epic booming voice alone, but for friggin' Darkseid, they just make him sound like a normal dude. A ragtag band of heroes track Damian to the League of Assassins' lair and get jumped by ninjas, mainly so that Etrigan can do some comic relief. Etrigan's deal is that he's bored off his ass because there aren't any good fights or strong bad guys to give him a challenge, so he just kinda loafs around and drinks. It's a really funny bit and some desperately needed comic relief holding the movie together, but it also kinda makes you tilt your head and wonder, retaking the Earth from an extra-dimensional army of clones of Superman isn't enough of a challenge for you?
Etrigan the Slayer is here. Woe to you. And you.
Damian has taken over leading the League of Assassins since Darkseid's invasion of Earth killed all of his friends, the Teen Titans. And yes, they do flash back to show you the details. And yes, that is Starfire's disemboweled corpse with her intestines leaking out of it. See this every time you revisit the beloved Teen Titans cartoon you grew up with or watch Teen Titans Go with your kids. Enjoy the legitimately great Justice League vs. Teen Titans movie, knowing that it leads to this. Hey fans, were you invested in Blue Beetle's arc of trying to reconnect with his family and find a life outside of superheroing, despite the struggles of having a homicidal robot alien fused to him? Too bad! He's dead now! Were you eager to see Superboy interact with the other Titans and curious how his character would grow no longer being controlled by Lex Luthor? Here's him getting murdered! That's all you get! Were you super into seeing Nightwing and Starfire's developing romance trying to balance the pitfalls of a serious relationship with the duties of superheroes and leading a super team? Well, here's both of them being disemboweled, and then Damian tried to bring Nightwing back with a Lazarus pit, and now he's hopelessly gibbering insane! Somewhere out there is a wiki where every single entry goes, and then they were murdered in Apokolips War. Oh, and I should probably talk about Raven, given that she's one of our main characters. Her father is a super powerful demon that wants to take over the world, and he's locked inside a jewel in her forehead. And after 2 years of all her friends being dead, her mental health has shattered to where she's barely able to keep him in check anymore. In fact, after the Titans all died, she tried to commit suicide, and Superman stopped her. Okay, credit where it's due, that is Superman. Anyway, they want Damian to join their team because they think it'll jolt Batman out of Darkseid's brainwashing, because Batman is so awesome that he is simultaneously Darkseid's bestest servant by a mile, and also able to shrug off 2 years of mental torture breaking his will into dust. Damian agrees to join, but they still need an army to break into LexCorp and hijack their portal leading to Apokolips, so Lois has gone to try and recruit the Suicide Squad. Oh yeah, almost forgot that they had a movie in this universe. So what happens now? Is the Suicide Squad going to go into detail about how they all got brutally slaughtered in graphic detail and now they've been cutting themselves for the last 2 years also?
I'm an army brat.
Well, no one out-brats me!
Break her face!
Relax, wife! Do your best, honey!
You gotta be kidding.
Oh, wait. Now we ride for Lex Luthor and his fortress of bolditude.
It's, a lightness.
It's called happiness.
Whatever it is, I like it.
I watched this movie twice before sitting down to review it. This is my third viewing, and my actual thoughts upon getting to this point were finally a scene that's not misery porn! The last 20 solid minutes of the movie have entirely been go here, get sad backstory, go there, get more sad backstory, with a few pointless and gratuitous fight scenes to try and keep you awake. But when the team goes to the prison, the movie actually comes to life a little. They get in some good jokes that don't feel out of place in the setting. There's pep and energy and people not just being miserable. They get some good character development that isn't just angsting. It's like, finally, I kind of give a crap what's going on. How freaking sad is it that the most engaging and uplifting part of the superhero movie is when the villains show up? Oh, and here's a bit that everyone latched onto upon seeing this movie.
Oh, bullets is my ex.
Hey, I'm not judging, except I was under the impression that shark skin is only smooth if you stroke it in one direction, and any other way it's like really jagged, so you'd think that... Let's move on. Harley's leading the Suicide Squad now because Amanda Waller died of cancer in this universe.
A week after that, my puddin' died thanks to new Batman. Always no fun.
So we'll show beloved superheroes being mercilessly dismembered, but we draw the line at a brainwashed Batman killing the Joker. We're not exploitation here! Damian and Raven take some time out to reignite their relationship since they were an item in prior movies. A lot of fans didn't like their pairing, but I thought it was cute. It just struck me as so perfect that the one thing that got Damian to get over himself was a girl whose life sucks even worse than his does. This is like the one plot thread from prior movies that's actually getting developed in the series' grand finale. Well, now that you give a crap what's going on again, Lois lays out the Resistance's grand plan for saving the Earth. They've got a mole inside Darkseid's army feeding them information. It is so obviously Lex Luthor. So they know that Darkseid's about to leave Apokolips to destroy the headquarters of the Green Lanterns. Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me of the plot hole that the perpetually useless Green Lantern Corps, guardians of all life in the universe, apparently haven't noticed Darkseid out to conquer all of creation or made one single move to stop him. Hell, we're about to find out that the John Stewart Green Lantern is still alive, but apparently hasn't done shit to try and save his homeworld the past 2 years! Anyway, while Darkseid's away, they're going to stage attacks on 2 of the 3 Planet Reapers to draw all the Paradooms away from Apokolips, leaving the planet mostly abandoned so they can go in and overload Apokolips's power core and destroy the planet.
Why not attack all 3?
We don't have enough people.
Okay, that's a legit great chilling line. Okay, so their plan is to go in and blow up Apokolips's reactor core, except Batman and Darkseid made a huge deal about how they kinda already did that. So shouldn't Superman already know that there's nothing left to blow up? I get the feeling I'm the only one who cares about this plot point. The assault begins, and I sure hope you didn't get attached to any of the sidekicks from Batman Bad Blood or Reign of the Supermen, because here they are getting brutally massacred. Oh hey, Shazam is still alive. At least for 2 more minutes he was still alive. Their attacks on the Reapers don't quite work, so Constantine calls in some backup in the form of Swamp Thing, the avatar of Earth's environment, who's somehow gone 2 damn years without noticing that Darkseid was blowing up his planet. Moron! And by the way, Swamp Thing's presence here is super confusing given that he was super dead at the end of the first Justice League Dark movie. Really? Not even going to try and explain how he's back? Okay. Actually, speaking of the first movie, where the hell is Deadman during all this? Dude was one of the main characters of the Justice League Dark, and he's never mentioned. And you can't say that he died during the Apokolips invasion, given the dude is a ghost! So this movie's called Justice League Dark. It only has 2 members of the Justice League Dark, one of whom isn't actually doing anything but getting crunk. Big fight scene as the team breaks into Lex Luthor's tower to use the portal to Apokolips, but sadly not all of them make it through alive.
Rest well, Shiva.
Okay, dude, Lady Shiva had like 10 seconds of screen time this whole universe. Stop pretending anyone cares that she's dead. Cheetah I'm more broken up about. They killed off the hot naked cat lady. I didn't say she was hotter than you. But surprise, surprise, Lex Luthor was their mole in Darkseid's army scheming to help overthrow Darkseid. Because that is Lex Luthor, not the mindless goon that Zack Snyder wanted to make him. So, if Lex was secretly working for the good guys this whole time, does that mean that our heroes just picked a fight with and casually murdered a bunch of soldiers who were on their side? They don't really mention or dwell on that, and it feels like lazy writing that nobody noticed. The naked cat lady died for nothing! Oh! Ah! So as they prepare to leave for Apokolips, Lex loads the team up with kryptonite weapons that'll let them kill the Paradooms. None of them fight any Paradooms, and Clark still might not have his powers, but he gets to fly Lex's battlesuit instead. Man of Steel, Iron Man, same difference.
Why are you still here, John?
Don't exactly know, Clarky.
Okay, Transformers 5 did the exact same thing. If your main character is asked, why are you here, and they have no answer, go back and do it again! Okay, I'm gonna be totally honest here. So far, Apokolips War has been a passable movie. It uses its post-apocalyptic setting to get some good characterization out of the cast. It has comic relief to keep the movie from being too bleak. Not always successfully, and the personal and global stakes of a ragtag group of woefully underpowered heroes out to save the universe are pretty compelling. Honestly, if it weren't for the pointlessly gruesome murders of beloved characters made for families and children, making the film feel mean-spirited, this wouldn't be that bad of a movie. Here in the home stretch, though, is where things really turn to shit. You know how it feels like we're heading to the climax and the movie should almost be over? We're only 50 minutes into a 90-minute runtime. If you count the 12 minutes of siege on LexCorp and the Reapers, over half the movie is climax. This isn't an epic final showdown for the fate of the universe. We're in for a drawn-out trudge as the movie just starts to fall apart like leprosy. So Darkseid goes to Oa and slaughters the Green Lantern Corps with no resistance. Probably because every Green Lantern that wasn't born on Earth just flies headlong at a target using their rings like a shitty gun that does nothing! Oh, and did you grow up with the Justice League cartoon and grow to love their Green Lantern John Stewart? Well, here's him getting melted down to a skeleton by Darkseid throwing magma into his face. Fun times. Our heroes try to sneak into Apokolips, but Batman detects them immediately, so they fight Darkseid's new Furies who've never been mentioned in any of these movies, who are now robot zombies of the other Justice League members. Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Hawkman, Mira, and Starfire? Okay, the other members actually went to Apokolips. Did someone have to drag Starfire's corpse back from Earth, being really careful that no more vital organs spilled out on the way back? Also, it becomes unintentionally hilarious that the Hawkman robot makes the stock eagle call sound effect every single shittin' time that he moves. And Etrigan, who's been complaining all movie about not having anyone decent to fight and boasting about how great he is, he fights cyborg zombie Wonder Woman and dies immediately. Methinks he was vastly overhyping himself. It's funny to think that Apokolips War actually did attract a strange fanbase by accident when it was first released. This came out before it was announced that Zack Snyder was going to finish his version of Justice League, and his fandom latched onto Apokolips War, convinced that it was secretly an adaptation of the Snyder Cut, or failing that of Snyder's multi-part Justice League plans. The film's head writer had to come out and clarify that it's actually loosely based on Future's End, a near universally reviled comic that was widely slammed for being pointlessly grimdark edgelord nonsense. So, easy to see how it got confused for Zack Snyder. And frankly, claiming that this is based on Future's End is suspect in the first place, given that Future's End was a time travel story, and none of the main heroes or villains are the same. The only thing the two stories have in common is villain uses cyborg zombie Justice League as henchmen, which, I grant you, not the most common plot point. Anyway, Constantine remembers that Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, which isn't in over half the shots of her character model, can break brainwashing, and he uses it to turn her back to normal, which kind of begs the question, Why the hell did Darkseid let her keep that? 1D stays behind to fight the other cyborg leaguers while the main cast moves on, because apparently it doesn't occur to any one of our dumbass heroes to use the gadget that reverses brainwashing on the other brainwashed Justice League members! Idiots!
Oh, shite and fried eggs.
Next, the team finds out that the Flash is still alive, hooked up to a giant hamster wheel that powers Apokolips since that core that totally wasn't blown up got blown up. They free him, but he's worn out and lost control of his powers, so Constantine puts him to sleep and somehow reads his mind to learn about Flashpoint.
He caused it. The Flashpoint. If he doesn't go back to save his mom, Darkseid isn't here.
If you don't know jack about DC, Flashpoint is the storyline where the Flash ran back in time to save his mom, but caused a dystopian alternate reality, and trying to fix it rebooted the universe and created a new continuity. And given that they've clumsily stopped the movie twice to bring it up, you can probably start guessing how this train wreck ends.
But if Flash is the power generator, there's no generator to blow up.
Too far in to turn around now.
Next, they run into Cyborg, who's been repurposed into some kind of central computer working for Darkseid for no reason that they ever attempt to explain. So then Constantine makes the mother of all assholes and just somehow casts a technology spell that reverses not just Cyborg's brainwashing, but all the brainwashing of the other Cyborg heroes all at once! They don't even attempt to explain how!
Techno magic. Feels like taking a test you haven't studied for. I cheat.
I think the writers just wrote themselves into a corner and threw up their hands and yelled, "Screw it! None of that's a thing anymore! Constantine's magic, he can do whatever the plot needs him to!"
You.
Superman, having not learned one goddamn thing about charging Darkseid head on. Batman and Darkseid come forward, and Batman and Robin get into a fight because apparently Damian was supposed to have had an arc of having daddy issues that they haven't brought up at all in this movie. I could have sworn that Damian had sorted out this crap in the earlier movies. I don't remember this family drama being a thing anymore. Batman whoops Damian's ass in a fight where they do one of my biggest pet peeves. The screen flashes white every damn time someone lands a hit. Why is this a thing? But Batman breaks out of the mind control through a flashback to his parents dying. Really, the love for his son wasn't enough to break the brainwashing. You had to reach for "my parents are dead" and turn this into parody? Okay. Darkseid tries to blast Batman with his Omega beams, but Damian jumps in the way and burns to near death, which breaks Raven enough that Trigon starts to escape. But instead of killing Raven to trap Trigon forever, Constantine releases him, which causes Trigon to jump into Superman's body and break Constantine's neck. Guess Trigon's a big fan of Man of Steel, huh? What boggles my mind here is that through Batman's fight and all the other heroes finagling with Trigon, Darkseid is literally just sitting on his ass for 5 solid minutes watching the movie happen. The heroes are planning out moves and summoning reinforcements in plain sight a few feet away from him, and a few eye lasers would end the movie in seconds. The lazy bastard wouldn't even have to get out of his chair. So Trigon jumps into Superman's body to fight Darkseid, and I do laugh here that Superman wins the initial eye laser beam struggle because Trigon has 4 eyes, which gives him 2 extras to shoot from. Finally, we're going to get an epic final showdown with Darkseid the whole series has been building up to! Or after 3 punches, they can immediately go outside to fight off screen. Because nobody actually wants to see the main villain getting his ass kicked. We really want to see Batman mourning his son and Lois Lane dying. Yeah, things aren't going so well back on Earth as the Suicide Squad lives up to their name, fighting paradooms that conspicuously change from hand-drawn to obvious CG midway through a single scene. Lois calls Clark to tell him goodbye, which lets him break out of Trigon's mind control, his powers restored and ready to take on Darkseid. Well, here's your smoking gun that this wasn't based on the Snyderverse. Lois dying is supposed to make Superman join the guy who killed her and blew up the planet. Watch my Snyder Cut review. I'm not joking. Yeah, Trigon's possession somehow burned all the kryptonite out of his body because shut up, and his costume is back and his beard is shaved because shut up more. Who Who cares? It's cool. We've been waiting tons of movies and 8 years to finally see Superman whoop Darkseid's ass. And we get one exchange of punches before they continue the fight off screen. Seriously, this climax is divided into 3 final battles where massive titans of unfathomable power duke it out, no holds barred for the fate of all creation, off screen, while the movie focuses on the other heroes making plans on how to win. So instead of having this humongous, satisfying spectacle of a climax, we watch a bunch of heroes sitting in a circle talking while all the exciting action they've been building up all movie happens somewhere that we can't see any of it. And frankly, you ask me, what little action we can see is crap. 2 brick shithouses no-selling a few punches and lasers, and that's it. Contrast with the energy of Dark's finale, or to be much less charitable, the new Dragon Ball Super films, and this is just pathetic. And the tension is kinda gone since Darkseid had a chance to obliterate the heroes, didn't take it, and is presently on his second ass-kicking of the movie. He's written as dumb as he needs to be for the heroes to win. Anyway, Constantine is dead now, and he runs into Zatanna in the afterlife, and she explains that she hexed him to flee the initial Apokolips invasion. She did this at Batman's request because he knew that they needed a contingency plan for if the invasion failed. So Batman knew that Superman was going to get the entire planet killed, and his backup plan was to hope that the drunk guy eventually comes up with a plan. And Constantine didn't even come up with a plan. He got roped into Lois Lane's plan. Pretty much a fail all around. Raven turns white and heals Damian, while Constantine, I swear I am not making this up, he spontaneously heals from a broken neck and comes back to life because Destiny said so. I'm dead serious. Constantine just rises from the dead out of nowhere, and the actual in-universe explanation is that it is physically impossible for you to die if Destiny has plans for you.
There can't even be a corpse in peace. Wanking Destiny can go bugger itself.
Maybe that's why Batman was so eager to save Constantine. He knows he's got plot armor the size of a brick shithouse. How do you get away with writing that lazy? The rest of the League finally friggin' shows up. Didn't feel like helping against Darkseid, huh? Cyborg can open a portal that takes all the heroes back to Earth, and he can just automatically teleport all the parademons and paradooms off Earth back to Apokolips, and he can blow up all of Apokolips by opening a portal to nowhere, because of course he can! Darkseid just happened to pointlessly stick Cyborg somewhere that he can magically solve the entire plot by wiggling his nose! The League doesn't want to leave Superman behind, so they need someone else to fight Darkseid while they escape. So they release Trigon to take over kicking Darkseid's ass because... Help me out here. Why is Trigon totally okay with staying behind on a planet that he knows is about to explode and kill him just for the chance to punch Darkseid a few times? It again feels like the writers were in a corner and just needed some excuse to get rid of him, same as they needed an excuse for several League members to still be alive, so just retcon that the League blew up some made-up reactor to explain it. One more footnote, apparently it's been a thing in DC Comics that fans have been dying to see Trigon and Darkseid fight each other, and they finally got their wish in this movie. We see all of 4 punches, and the rest of it happens off-screen while the heroes run away. Because you don't need to actually see the big, huge, epic fight they've been building up the entire movie. You just need to know that it's happening somewhere off in the distance. So all the heroes except Cyborg escape, and Darkseid, Trigon, and all of Apokolips are blown up in a magic portal that leaves absolutely nothing behind. A visual metaphor for what this movie did to the series. And now we get to arguably the worst part of the entire movie. We finally reached that notorious ending. Batman reports that they were too late stopping Darkseid. So much of the Earth's core is gone that the planet is drifting off of its axis, which will ultimately destroy the Earth and kill everyone on it. If they're able to fix it, it won't be until after 1 billion more casualties, and Earth is now a shithole anyway. Constantine realizes that their only option is to create another Flashpoint, to have the Flash run back in time and reboot the universe again. erasing their world and their entire history completely out of existence to start from scratch.
Everything would change.
And some of those changes may be shite. It'll be a long sight better than what we got now.
It is impossible for me not to see the meta subtext of that line from a production standpoint. These movies suck, and no matter what they do next, it'll be better than this crap. They were so done with this series. And so our movie ends with the Flash traveling back in time and altering history so that the entire DCAMU never happened, and these versions of the characters never existed, with a great white void consuming all the remaining heroes as the film fades out. I seriously cannot imagine a much more insulting note to end a franchise on. Hey, you know all those superheroes that you spent 8 years following and whom a lot of you grew up with? Well, they're all hideous failures who sucked and died so hard that we had to erase everything to where none of it even happened. I get they wanted to squash any question of ever revisiting this series, but it seems like they could have done it without murdering everyone and deleting what was left. In fact, wiping out the universe to start from scratch, that sounds eerily familiar.
I will shred this universe down to its last atom, and then create a new one that knows not what it has lost, but only what it has been given.
Marvel's doomsday villain plan is DC's good ending. Even setting aside this movie's position as the grand finale to a near decade-long series, this is a shit ending to this movie. All the hardship, suffering, torture, mutilation, and mass casualties suffered by our heroes only to still lose, so their only reward is being put out of their misery. It just makes the movie feel depressing and empty. A slog with no payoff, and I think even the box realized what a shit ending this is, since it tries to push survival itself is a victory. Well, nobody survives the end of the universe, so by your own admission, everyone loses! It's not uncommon for superhero stories to have apocalyptic settings where most of the characters have died. Avengers Endgame did it, Days of Future Past did it, Legends of Tomorrow did it several times. Zack Snyder was jumping out of his skin screaming that he was doing it. But those stories always end with the heroes reversing the apocalypse or doing time travel shenanigans to prevent it in the first place. Even Logan ended with a new generation of X-Men carrying on the team's legacy. You don't make the world's blown up and everyone's dead the canon ending to your series because it's a grade A slap in the face to anyone who was actually invested in your story. That's how Tomato Way ended, and you don't want to be Tomato Way. Justice League Dark Apokolips War is a frustrating movie. It has the bones of a good story, putting the focus on relatively minor characters in a new setting that's used to develop them in interesting ways with compelling tension and personal stakes, but it completely fails to stick the landing with a very drawn-out and abysmally paced climax that doesn't deliver on the action you were promised. It's built on the idiot plot with characters acting like morons to set everything up. The second half feels like it's being made up on the spot, and the pointlessly gratuitous violence and bleakness make the movie feel mean-spirited and unpleasant. Did any of the characters in this film have an actual arc? Constantine's obviously the main character and out for redemption over something that he didn't even do willingly. He's just kind of a walking plot device that spouts one-liners. It feels like most of the characters are. Was there a theme here, like how war ends in mutual destruction? Because as dumb as Superman was, a fight with Darkseid was inevitable. You could argue that it's just meant to be action spectacle, but they barely show you the final battle. In my opinion, the action sucks. So we've got a movie that just feels like it's not trying to do much of anything except wrap up a franchise out of obligation as quickly as possible. Feels less like they wanted to make this movie and more like they had to. Naturally, Apokolips War was divisive. While some considered it a suitably epic finale to the animated movie universe with a hard-fought and hopeful ending, pointing out they had to rescue the Flash to rewrite time in the first place, many found it to be an unpleasant exercise in edgelord that ruined the preceding movies because it felt pointless getting invested into any of the characters. About the only thing viewers seem to agree on is that they were sick to death of this take on Damian Wayne, having now had 4 movies worth of focus and being one of the only characters to get a resolution. Despite Warner Bros. Animation's hatred of connected movies, they've gone right back to making shared universe DC films, starting with Superman Man of Tomorrow, albeit at a much slower pace, with standalone movies and mediocre Mortal Kombat flicks in between. And while the only standout Tomorrowverse film so far has been the excellent Batman The Long Halloween, the movies are showing promise for branching out to other characters and telling more classical superhero stories. I'm just saying we probably could have gotten there without burning the old universe to the ground and then pissing out the ashes. Although with David Zaslav in the process of burning all of Warner Brothers to ash and going out of his way to demolish animation projects, I don't know how many more entries we're gonna get in the near future. So whether in live action or in animation, it's rough being a DC fan.
You are wiser than I give you credit for.
Not a high bar, I gather.
If you're happy and you know it, smash your head.
Looks like I get the last word. Suck it, bitches.